G'day cocktail lovers. I'm doing another blind tasting of some Australian whiskies. The theme tonight is cask strength. A few weeks ago I did one where it was entry-level whiskies. They're all about 40% ABV and they were among the more affordable whiskies you get on the Australian market. These, not so much either affordable or approachable because they're cask strength. Quite a bit of variety. I was calling this my 1,000 subscriber celebration because that was my excuse for buying this little beauty. It was actually a month or so ago that I hit 1,000 subscribers. Thank you, each and every one of you. And even if you just watch and don't subscribe, I appreciate you, each and every one. This was an extremely limited release from a local distillery, Starward. They actually finished this whiskey in a Lagavulin barrel, ex-Lagavulin barrel. So the idea is it's going to pick up some of that peaty smoke that the Lagavulin is so famous for. You actually had to enter a ballot for this. They weren't just on sale. You're on their mailing list. They go, we've got a limited number, sign up for the ballot, and you might or might not get the opportunity to buy it. And particularly limited was the cask strength one. The regular strength one is probably going to be available a bit more widely in 6 or 12 months. That's what's happened with a few of their other limited ones. But they said this will be the only time you'll get the cask strength. And I was in a bit of a quandary because little pricey, like right up there with the most I've ever paid for a bottle. It wasn't an instant yes because it's a bit pricey, but it wasn't an instant no because it hadn't crossed way over into the that's too expensive territory. I was mulling over, there's a Discord that a bunch of the YouTube bartenders and cocktail channels use, and I was chatting about it in there, and yeah, it was thrown out, oh, call it your 1,000 subscriber celebration. That's your excuse for lashing out. So that's my excuse, and it's in such a nice box. I want to do an unboxing. Oh, and just in terms of nice presentation, quite a few Australian distillers will put very nice boxes in their bottles, particularly if it's a limited one. I always feel really guilty throwing them out. Like this is a really quite tough cardboard. It's a magnet holding it closed, and you open up and there's a little Starward symbol. They talk about the tasting notes on there. Little thanks for buying this from the founder, David Vitale. This is the actual bottle. Now this is 55%, so that's come off the cask at 55% ABV, so 110 proof. If you're not completely sure what cask strength means in terms of whiskey, it means they've literally bottled it straight from the cask. They haven't diluted it. A lot of shelf whiskies, you'll see 40% is like the benchmark for whiskies. They've been watered down out of the barrel, and you can get quite a spectrum of alcohol content. When you say cask strength, you can't completely control what that is, so they measure it after it comes out. For instance, number 2, which is a hot contender for these are my 2 most expensive bottles. They're from both Melbourne makers. This is from Bakery Hill. Fun fact, if you don't already have either of these, you can't get them. People from overseas going, oh, you're showing Australian whiskies. Pity I can't get them. Even in Australia, if you don't already have these, you can't get them. They were that limited. I actually invested in this distillery. They were moving from the country, Victoria, to Melbourne City. They did a fundraising thing. You're basically buying shares to cover the moving costs. I thought, that sounds like fun. I'll probably never get a return off this, but it's just fun to be part of. I actually invested in Bakery Hill. Now, this was only available to investors. They call it the prospectus drop. My favorite of their single malts is called Double Wood. It spends its life in 2 different barrels. There's one is an ex-bourbon barrel, and then it's finished in a virgin French oak barrel, hence they call it the double oak. And this is a cask strength expression, which they've never released before. Original artwork on the label, and they call it the prospector's drop. This comes in at 60% ABV. The Starward is 55% ABV, so you can see already there's some variation. Both cask strength, but they've come out at different strengths. The final 2 you can still get if you're in Australia. This is from the Archie Rose Distillery in Sydney. They released a version of their single malt that was aged in ex-rum casks, and I just thought it was great. And then they said, oh, everyone likes this so much, we're going to release a cask strength version. And I thought, I'm gonna get that. I'm not disappointed by it, I'll tell you this much. This is 58% ABV, so falling between those 2. It's got some very interesting characteristics from the rum barrel. My final cask strength is also the strongest. This is from the Whippersnapper Distillery in Western Australia called Upshot Australian Whiskey, cask strength. This particular bottling is 64%. This can vary from batch to batch, but not a lot. I've seen it go from 63 to 65%. So Here's our range. It's going from 55% through to 64%, and very different styles. One finished in ex-Lagavulin barrels, one finished in virgin French oak, one finished in a rum cask, and this one is just the highest proof one. Now theoretically, those different styles, I should be able to pick the Lagavulin one, I should be able to pick the rum one, and maybe be able to pick the highest proof. I enjoy watching your drinking buddy do double blinds. He's just mad into the American whiskies and does these really complex things where he has no idea what he's drinking, and he tries to guess all these things like the distillery, the bottling, the proof, and whether it's finished or not. No, none of those things. Although I know what it is, so it's not a double blind. I've got to give myself, I think, at least a 50-50 chance of getting these right, even though I'm usually pretty bad at it. But we're going to give it a go. I've had Mrs. Angry come in and mix up the glasses, so I don't know which is which, but I'm just going to do this thing that the guy at Bakery Hill told me to do to really get the aroma happening. Cupping the Glen can, warm it up a bit, and trapping the vapors in to get the aroma. I'm sure I'm just going to double guess myself and bluff myself out of whatever. But there's an initial fruitiness in this, and I was going, is there smoke? Is that the Lagavulin? I'm going to taste it. High proof whiskey, a little bit of burn there, but that fruity character really carried through. That's really quite pleasant. I'm not going to commit myself to anything yet. I'm going to compare the four of them. So my second mystery glass. This one is much more caramel and maybe raisiny. Yeah, a bit more cinnamon than the first one. There's very interesting fruit notes in the first one, not so much this one. That did not burn as much going down. That's not an absolute guarantee that it's lower proof, because sometimes it can be a bit tricky like that. Yeah, I'm never gonna guess these. Number 3, on the aroma, it's quite a bit like the previous one. You're sort of getting a vibe of red wine, like it was aged in an ex-red wine barrel. That's a much lighter taste than the first two. It's much brighter for me. I'm never gonna guess these. Number 4. Okay, now is this smelling smoky? I know I'm gonna double bluff myself in these things. Maybe very gentle smoke on this, which I'd expect because it's only finished in a Lagavulin barrel. It's not actually peated. Yeah, that's another one that's very hot, as in it tastes very boozy. Trying to guess proof-wise, if I was going just on how they made me feel, I would say this is the upshot. But now I've had a little taste of each, I'm going to do a quick second comparison, so I've got an idea of what they're like in relation to each other. I've done my second taste comparison, and I'm going to make my doubtless wrong call now. I actually got a bit of a vibe in my head that the glasses were actually directly corresponding with the bottles. Like, so much swapping around, they ended up back in their original positions. Then I talked myself out of this. So I'm going to say this first one is the Whippersnapper, but I initially thought it was the Lagavulin one, and it is. It has fallen off. Okay, so that shall remain a mystery, but the stickers are still on the other 3, so by process of elimination, I'll work out what it is. Now, I think this is the Bakery Hill Prospectus Drop number 2. No, it's number 3. Okay, that was the rum barrel finish. I told you I was going to get these wrong. I thought number 3 was the rum barrel. Is it going to be the Bakery Hill number 2? Yes, it is. Okay, so I got those 2 reversed. That's interesting. Now I'm really going to quickly, with that knowledge in hand, taste them. So they're a rum cask. I guess with that knowledge I can get a sort of molasses thing there, and the double wood. And again, that's probably the power of suggestion, but I think with that knowledge I can actually taste the molasses element in the rum cask one. So this was the one I initially thought was the upshot, but then thought, I'm going with this is the Lagavulin barrel one. I was right! Oh my god, I got it half right. That's not terrible for me. I'm glad I did pick the one with the highest proof, and I did pick the smoky one. The 2 comparatively subtle ones tricked me. In retrospect, I can get that the rum one has a bit of a molasses element in there that the double wood doesn't. They're all pretty good though. I think now I'm going to make some, maybe with the leftover from the Glen cans, make an old fashioned. These would be very good for beefing up cocktails. Again, I love saying that because hardcore whiskey types, when I've got these quite special single malt cask strength and I say I'm putting them in cocktails, they're going to go, what? But you know what? You drink what you like to drink, how you like to drink it, as the Whiskey Tribe are fond of saying. I'm a cocktail guy. Usually the only time I drink whiskey straight is when I'm doing taste comparisons. It's quite rare for me to want to drink whiskey straight. That's just how I am, and if that upsets people, it's probably one of the less offensive things I've done that have upset people. Trust me on that. Well, that was interesting for me. Those are all quite good. There's certainly none of them I'd be spitting out and saying I demand my money back. They've all got great character and they've each got something going for them. Two of them you just can't get if you don't already have. You doubt you'll get any of them outside of Australia. But this is always my message. I'm not saying you have to get these, but I am saying if you're around the world and you get the opportunity to try Australian whiskies, I do recommend you try it because they're good. But these are local to me. I think you should search out stuff that's local to you, wherever you are. You'll probably find some great surprises, really good quality stuff, because there are great distillers all around the world. And I'm going to finish up these little samples of cask strength, which will probably have me falling over in a little bit. So I'll see you sometime soon, hopefully when I've recovered. But until such time, I'll give you a double fisting sign off. Cheers.